That absolutely hair-raisingly creepy rendition, we are obviously talking about Little Sisters in this week's episode, and Little Sisters, who were originally named as Gatherers by the game developers, are young girls who have been genetically altered and mentally conditioned to reclaim Adam from corpses around Rapture. Little Sisters are almost always accompanied by a Big Daddy. They are generally immune to damage outside of being harvested, and they have no offensive abilities. Attacking them, however, does incur the wrath of their Big Daddy protectors. Adam is excreted by unique sea slugs found near Rapture. The Adam-producing sea slugs did not naturally produce a large enough quantity for serious research and commercial exploitation. Dr. Bridget Tenenbaum developed a procedure whereby a sea slug was implanted in a human host's stomach, and a symbiotic interaction between host and slug yielded up to 30 times the quantity of usable Adam. Young girls, nicknamed Little Sisters following the implantation process, were found to be the only viable hosts, and although Tenenbaum hoped to be able to keep the children in a vegetative state, it was found they had to be fully functional to produce the Adam. They still maintained many of the ordinary characteristics of small children: laughter, playing, smiling, singing. Frank Fontaine created his Little Sisters orphanage in Apollo Square and other locations as a front to exploit the children as his supply of hosts for Adam production. When Andrew Ryan took over Fontaine Futuristics, he discovered the existence of the children. He found them appalling, but had to accept the necessity of their existence to generate the quantity of Adam Rapture now required. It wasn't long before the entire city became aware of where Adam was really coming from, and he shut down those false orphanages and continued to use the Little Wonders educational facility to house the existing Adam hosts. The city's Adam addiction endemic and Adam's use to fight civil war shortages were becoming critical. Eventually, as the Civil War's body counts grew and the shortages increased, a solution to get additional Adam led to using the children to obtain Adam from corpses, and Little Sister Adam hosts were mentally and physically prepared for this grim harvesting role. Ryan, to negate the abhorrence of the population, portrayed the Little Sisters in a marketing gimmick, their image being used on plasmid and tonic vending machines called Gatherers Gardens, and even produced toy dolls of them. Rapture public announcements introduced them as the salvation of the city, a reassurance of continuing Adam production. With the growing chaos of the Civil War, the demand for Adam Sword, and Ryan Industries resorted to kidnapping little girls from their parents to create more Little Sisters. Dr. Yi Su-chong, realizing that the need for Adam was greater than the amount produced by the Little Sisters themselves, pioneered a way for them to recycle Adam from the blood of dead splicers, greatly increasing their Adam yield. Naturally, the children were unwilling to cooperate. To overcome this basic obstacle, Dr. Su-chong created methods to mentally condition the children. This produced a neurological impulse to recognize the bodies of dead splicers as angels, to make the grisly process of extraction and consuming the Adam-rich blood appealing for the girls. Like many of the tools in Rapture, the Little Sisters' Adam extractor syringes were fabricated from common items: large needles, hose nozzles, and baby bottles. To make Little Sisters more effective in their task, they were heavily conditioned to see the world of Rapture very different from reality. Instead of seeing the dark, deteriorated state of the city, they saw an idealized child's world with rosy marble floors, pink or red drapings, and flowering vines growing everywhere. Little Sisters saw their Big Daddies as noble golden knights, and saw Big Sisters as brides or princesses with elegant ballroom apparel. Statues appeared to them as heroic Big Daddies, pools of blood as rose petals, flies as butterflies, random fires on the floor as lit fireplaces, weapons as red plastic toy guns, and the dead bodies of splicers as angels. Men and women lying in elegant repose with the outline of a halo and angelic wings surrounding them. Splicers themselves appeared as handsome and beautiful, taking the forms of elegantly dressed men and women in masquerade masks, conversing civilly, when in reality they were violently fighting. This dream world persisted in the girls' day-to-day experience, except for occasional lapses where their senses were brought abruptly back to the grim, twisted reality of Rapture's decay whenever they were frightened or startled. This was also shown to happen while concentrating on the process of gathering Adam from a corpse. However, this could just be due to Delta temporarily losing control over the girl while she harvests Adam. The Alpha series Big Daddies were a failed line of prototype protectors developed first by Dr. Yisu Chong. The line was completed by Dr. Gilbert Alexander using prisoners from Persephone Penal Colony as test subjects. The main difference between the Alpha series and the other Big Daddies is the nature of their bond to the Little Sisters. Each Alpha series was created with an unbreakable physiological bond to a single Little Sister. This bond created a fail-safe enforced by each Little Sister's pheromone signature. An Alpha series that wandered too far from his bond partner for an extended period of time would lapse into coma or madness. This bond proved to be too effective, however, as each Big Daddy in the Alpha series became useless after his little sister was killed by attacking splicers or saved by Bridget Tenenbaum. Any Alpha series model that was not rendered comatose as a result of his sister being lost descended into emotional instability to the point of psychosis. When the Alpha series failed, it was discovered that previous Big Daddy models, such as the Bouncer and Rosie, could be used as more suitable protectors. With physical and neurological drives in place, the Little Sisters eagerly pursued gathering Adam in Rapture. The Adam coursing through their bodies made them virtually indestructible, immediately repairing any damaged tissue. However, they still had the stature and strength of small girls, not to mention their constant hallucinatory states, so they were a constant target for abduction and exploitation. Dr. Suchong, in light of the rising mortality rate of Little Sisters, initiated the Protector program. The idea was to create a series of protectors that would defend the Little Sisters from splicer attacks so they could gather Adam without interference. This ambition proved to be more of a challenge than anticipated by the scientists, and numerous attempts were needed to find the right balance of Adam-based conditioning in both the Gatherer and the Protector. Despite the tests and trials, through the hands of a third party, the final key to the bond was found to be quid pro quo, as both discovered that one could not survive without the other. The results of the program had each Little Sister paired with a Big Daddy, a heavily spliced human test subject grafted into an enormous and armoured diving suit. After an unfortunate event leading to the demise of Dr. Suchong, the bond was further strengthened through conditioning employing pheromones. The pheromone produced by the Big Daddy attracted the Little Sisters, and its counterpart produced by the Little Sisters instinctively drove the Big Daddies to defend them with their lives. Once Big Daddies came into full production, the Little Sisters were also put through a course of Pavlovian psychological exercises designed to force them into rejecting all positive feelings towards any mother-type figure, and instead place all of their affection upon a generic Big Daddy archetype. As a result, the little girls see every Big Daddy protecting them as the same person, and consider the mere mention of the word mummy to be taboo. Because of the pheromone and Suchong's conditioning regimen, the Little Sisters are strongly attached to the Big Daddies, affectionately calling them a number of pet names such as Mr. Bubbles or Mr. B. When a Big Daddy is killed, its little sister will stop whatever she is doing and mourn its death. However, the strong bond between the pairs made the Big Daddies highly aggressive, prompting Ryan to issue public warnings against approaching any Little Sisters to prevent any accidents involving citizens or interference. At one point, McClendon Robotics was tasked with creating a line of robotic Little Sisters to supplement the human Little Sisters. However, the testing trials revealed that Big Daddy simply ignored the robotic gatherers, leaving them vulnerable to attacks by splicers. This forced the team to abandon the project and left an entire production line of robotic Little Sisters discarded in the offices of McClendon Robotics. Now, removal of the sea slug from the host under normal circumstances is fatal. Although the host doesn't die immediately, their heartbeat can still be heard. It was likened to taking a patient off of life support. Their demise would be inevitable. In a forced removal, a large amount of Adam could still be obtained from the sea slug. However, Tenenbaum's constant contact with the Little Sisters and their unsuppressed childlike behavior eventually resulted in a crisis of conscience and caused her to seek a way to safely remove the sea slug. In time, she was able to design a plasmid with the ability to restore some characteristics of the Little Sisters' pre-slug state. This is, however, only a physical change. For example, the appearance and voice are returned to a natural state, they lose their Adam-producing ability and strength with healing factor, and are less prone to enragement and fear, recognizing the player as a friend. However, they still retain results of their mental conditioning, still treating Big Daddies as parental figures, seeing the world in a dreamlike wonderland with angels, and instinctively using vents or using their extractors to drain corpses of Adam. Presumably, the mental conditioning requires a different cure. Tenenbaum established a safe house for restored little sisters in the tunnels beneath Olympus Heights for that purpose. After the events of Bioshock, Tenenbaum left for the surface, taking many of the saved little sisters with her. However, Sophia Lamb soon came into power in Rapture and later restarted the Little Sister program to supply the Rapture family with Adam and to further her own plans. There were not enough young girls left in Rapture to supply the Adam cycle, and many of those who remained had matured to the point that they were only useful as big sisters. Lamb began a program of kidnapping young girls from the surface to convert them into little sisters. Taken by big sister protectors, these new little sisters were processed in the pediatric wing of the Persephone prison colony under the watchful eye of Edward Grimes and his staff of physicians. The new girls developed a unique psychological bond with Eleanor Lamb, who could see through their eyes and even control them to a certain extent. When Tenenbaum discovered the kidnappings on the surface, she knew immediately where the girls were being taken and what purpose they were to serve. She acquired a submersible and descended to Rapture, expecting to find the missing girls turned into little sisters, gathering alongside Big Daddies, so she began rescuing them. Eventually, Eleanor contacted Tenenbaum through her connection to the Little Sisters, and they created a plan to save the Little Sisters and help Eleanor escape to the surface by resurrecting subject Delta. After Delta was brought back to life using a Vita chamber in the Adonis Luxury Resort, the Little Sisters began to work with him, helping him to reach Eleanor at Persephone. Meanwhile, Tenenbaum reached out to other deactivated Alpha Series Big Daddies throughout Rapture, such as Subject Sigma, and asked for their aid in rescuing the remaining Little Sisters in the city. So each Little Sister was a young girl that's aged roughly between the years of 5 and 10. And in Bioshock, the Little Sisters had some varying hair colours, but in Bioshock 2, they're all brunette, including Cindy Meltzer in-game, due to time constraints preventing the developers from making her blonde. The girls are clothed in dirty dresses of various colours that reach just below their knees. All of the Little Sisters are barefoot while they explore the halls of Rapture, but before the riots they wore shoes, as evidenced in the opening cutscene of Bioshock 2 and also Burial at Sea. Due to their fast regeneration, they can walk on any harsh surface without issues. When one of the girls is struck, her flesh glows in a natural golden colour, showing the effects of the fast regeneration due to the Adam in their system. However, even with the fast regen of Adam, the girls are still vulnerable. They could be killed by splicers who wanted to extract the Adam they contained by forced removal of the sea slug. Although Little Sisters are invincible otherwise and able to regenerate any damage, the invincibility is not perfect. An example of this was that if a Little Sister were to break her legs, forcing them at odd angles, they would heal so quickly the bones would fuse at these angles. To be set right, they would have to be broken repeatedly due to the almost instant healing process. Furthermore, Little Sisters are not immune to the resulting pain. The only attack that would affect Little Sisters is the splash damage of a grenade. When a Little Sister is in the vicinity of a thrown grenade, she will become ragdollish and move with the splash impulse as she is briefly knocked unconscious, then stand back up. Little Sisters can even survive being underwater. There is a scene in Bioshock 2 in the ballast chamber when they are used by Eleanor to help boil away the water of Augustus Sinclair's lifeboat. In that scene, the sisters stay underwater for a prolonged period as they boil the water. So in the first game, there are a total of 21 Little Sisters that can be rescued or harvested, disregarding any extra Little Sisters which may appear as a result of glitches. If the player harvests all 21 of these Little Sisters, they can gain a total of 3,360 Adam throughout the game. If the player rescues all the Little Sisters and finds all of the gifts from Dr. Tenenbaum, they will earn a total of 3,080 Adam and a number of gene tonics. Accessing the start menu will reveal the number of Little Sisters in the player's current level, as well as their current status. In the second game, the tactics of gaining Adam are similar to that of the first game. Once the player comes across a Little Sister, Subject Delta can either harvest her or adopt her. Little Sisters rarely carries much Adam when she is first encountered though, however the player can choose to pick her up and look for an Adam-rich corpse to gather more Adam from. This will attract the Splicer's attention, forcing the player to set up a perimeter to defend the Little Sister while she gathers. Once she has finished harvesting the Adam, the Little Sister will drink a small bit of it through the rubber teat on the end before giving the player the rest of the Adam she has gained. After that, the player has a choice of either saving the girl and sending her through a Little Sister vent back to Tenenbaum, or harvesting her since the girl will contain a lot more Adam after gathering. This system is meant to be a harder choice for the player, since the potential gain from harvesting is much greater. However, by saving little sisters, the player can earn a present, including a tonic called Proud Parent, increasing the Adam harvested per corpse by 20, and the Demanding Father tonic that increases the speed at which the sisters gain Adam. Additionally, in Bioshock 2, the little sisters had an added ability. They are able to heal their wounded protectors over time. So when a Big Daddy loses health from attacks by splicers or Subject Delta, the protector's bonded little sisters can refill his health by injecting Adam from their syringes into his body through the palm. They do also appear in Bioshock Infinite when Booker DeWitt and Elizabeth are transported to the bathysphere station in Rapture. A little sister can be seen weeping over her fallen Big Daddy in a glass tunnel across from the Metro Lounge in the Welcome Center. Some bugs or glitches. In the PC version of Bioshock 2, if the player chooses to bind a different key for use, they will still be prompted to press the original use key when adopting a little sister, but this will do nothing. Pressing the key that has been rebound to use will allow the player to adopt a little sister. In Bioshock 2 multiplayer, when one players capture the sister, Adam Grab or Team Adam Grab, the player often picks up the sister, and if one is killed, then they drop her. The little sister can be dropped on places that will cause her to be in the falling state permanently, and there is no way to pick her up when she's falling. Except if one would drop her on the lamp over one of the surgery beds in Daddy Dental of Medical Pavilion, she will get into that state. This can be undone when she respawns after 60 seconds. A little bit of trivia and behind the scenes. So early in the development of Bioshock, the player was to collect Adam directly from the sea slugs that produce it. The slugs even had their own gatherer vent on the ground. However, the developers wanted to give the choice of harvesting Adam more impact, so the host design went through many changes, from small chipmunk-like creatures, such as in the Eutropolis story, to monkeys, but the effect was deemed too comedic. The concept of little sisters stemmed from the need to find a more empathetic victim for the player, obviously if you're capable of empathy. Originally, the developers had planned that the little sister could be killed by physical damage, but in the games they are nearly invulnerable, despite a burnt model existing in the game files of Bioshock. This is explained by the regenerative ability of the sea slugs within them. However, the little girls will still be immune to damage even after they have been rescued by the player character. Attempting to harm them as they run to the nearest vent will have no effect. Although they can be knocked down by explosions from enemies after being rescued, they inevitably get back up and continue to the closest vent. Bioshock, the little sisters were voiced by Juliette Landau. In Bioshock 2, the little sisters are voiced by Jodelle Ferland, who is much closer to the apparent age of the little sisters. Landau reprised her role as the little sisters in Burial at Sea. Bridget Tenenbaum once wondered why they were only able to use little girls instead of boys, and she was given a sarcastic answer by Fontaine that it meant one less bathroom to build in the orphanage. Despite this, in the Deco Devolution art book for Bioshock 2, it is mentioned that little brothers were a concept explored by the devs, but were not represented in the games themselves. They would have been housed in the therapy rooms of Inner Persephone. In the novel Bioshock Rapture, when Tenenbaum and Suchong first present a little sister to Fontaine, they mention also creating a little brother, but reveal that the experiment did not end well. The devs originally allowed the multiplayer characters the option to harvest or adopt the little sister. This was likely to gain an extra Adam reward, and would only have functioned in a game mode, which was removed. In a Reddit AMA, Ken Levine mentions how the little sister pair bonding relationship was inspired by that of ants. In the demo, the little sister would cough up blood after gathering, but this was cut from the final version of the game. Now, the little sisters were partly inspired by the Grady twins from the 1980s classic film The Shining. Lead animator Sean Robertson did motion capture by himself for the first little sister Jack can choose to save or harvest in Bioshock. His daughter also did motion capture for Sally's appearance in Paris in Burials at Sea Episode 2. The robotic little sisters featured in Minerva's Den were actually made as a possible substitute to the regular little sisters for the German version of Bioshock, since murdering children in a video game was unacceptable in Germany, but was left unused. Jeff Weir, 2K Marin animation supervisor, explains why the little sisters changed appearance from Bioshock to Bioshock 2, and he said that the game focuses more on the father-daughter relationship. The first game had a much creepier little sister. This time we want you to feel more like she could actually be a real girl, and it says a few more things, but that's a very interesting concept. And that is all the lore we've got really on little sisters at the moment. What did you think? What did you guys do? Did you generally harvest them or rescue them? Let me know in the comments down below, and we will definitely see you in another video very soon. Thanks guys.
utopia is not a place, but a people, then we must choose carefully, for the world is about to change. And in our story, rapture was just the beginning.